Today we will be discussing how to multiply a monomial by either another monomial or a monomial times a polynomial. So let's do monomial times a monomial. In other words, one thing times one thing. So up here we have 3x times 4x. Okay, two monomials, two one things. What we can do, we know when we multiply, we can multiply the coefficients. So we can multiply the 3 times the 4, multiply these two things together, and we get 12. Then we have x times x. Now when we multiply variables together, they have to be the same base. So in other words, the same letter name. And what we will do is we just simply add the exponents. So in this case, our exponents are 1. Just the letter, it is assumed that those are 1. So 1 plus 1 is 2. So we get x to the second, or x squared. So x times x is x squared. So when we multiply 3x times 4x, multiplying the coefficient and then the variables, we get 12x squared. Okay, that's a very basic one. Now let's look at the next one. 6m times 4m to the 5th. So we've got two coefficients. 6 times 4, that's the easy part, 24. Now we are going to multiply these two variables together. Since they're the same letter name, we can simply multiply them, which means we add the exponent. So we keep the m. This m is assumed to be m to the first. 1 plus 5 equals 6. So our product is 24m to the 6th. Now, we have a monomial times a binomial. We are going to use the distributive property. We are going to take this whole monomial, multiply it by this one, and then multiply it by this one. Okay. Let's look at this one first. 2h times 3m. We can multiply the coefficients. 2 times 3 is 6. H times m. Now those are not the same letter. They're not the same variable, so we can't combine them. So we just keep them as a product. 6hm. 6 times h times m. Now let's move on to the next term in our binomial. Minus 4h, or negative 4h. So we are going to take this 2h times the negative 4h. First of all, we are just going to multiply the coefficients. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. Now we keep that negative sign, it becomes a minus sign. Now we have an h and an h. We can multiply that together and combine. So we keep the h. This is to the first and that's to the first. So that becomes now h to the second. So this product, 6hm minus 8h squared. Let's look at a monomial times a trinomial. We are going to take this entire monomial and distribute it to each term inside the polynomial. There, to there, and to there. So let's do the first one. We can multiply the coefficients. Negative 2 times 4, that's negative 8. Then we have b and b to the 4th. It's the same letter, so we can combine. b, this is a 1 and a 4, so we get b to the 5th. Now let's look at this term. It has a minus sign, so we have to remember that when we multiply. We have negative 2 times negative 7, that's a positive 14. And then we have a b and a b. Same letter, we just add the exponent. So b to the first times b to the first is b to the second. Now let's do the last multiply. Negative 2b and a positive 10. So in this case, we can multiply the numbers together. Negative 2 and positive 10, that's negative 20. And we just have a b. There's nothing out here for us to multiply. So here is our product. And the last one gets a little bit more complicated. Our monomial to the second g to the second, or f squared g squared. You're multiplying it by 3 plus f minus g to the third. We are going to take this monomial and distribute it to each of these terms. So we have f squared g squared times 3. So we are going to take it and multiply the coefficients. So we just have a number here, and the assumed number there is 1. 3 times 1 is 3, and there's nothing here for us to multiply it by, the variable. So we're just going to keep that, f squared g squared. Now we're going to take this and multiply it by just an f. So we have positive. A positive times a positive is a positive. We assume that this is a 1. 1 times 1 is 1. We really don't need to put that there. So now we're just going to multiply the variables together. So the f and this f squared can be combined. This is f to the first. So when we multiply that together, f, we add the 2 plus the 1, which we get the 3. And then we just have the g squared because there's nothing here to multiply it by. All right, then this final term, minus g to the third. So we multiply it here. We've got a 1 here, and we've got a 1 here, but this is also a minus sign, so it's a negative 1. Negative times a positive is a negative. 1 times 1 is just 1. We don't have to put that in. You can if you want. And then, so we have an f squared here, but no f's. So we keep the f squared. G squared and g to the third, we are going to add those exponents. So this got a little bit more complicated, but it's doing the exact same thing. Just go slowly and practice.